Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Just Run podcast. Just wanted to say straight away, like I did last week, thank you so much to each and every one of you who've listened, subscribed and liked to the previous episodes. If you haven't had a chance to catch up with last week's, please go over and catch up because we spoke to a really motivational, inspirational guy called Andrew, who's on his own incredible journey. And yeah, it's just a really good episode and thoroughly enjoyed meeting him. On the subject of awesome guests, we've got another one this week called Sophie Vecchione. Again, I'm going to do this hand because I cannot help it. She is an amazing trail runner, and as of the 4th of May, well, Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you, you're going to be doing your first ultra as well. And yeah, she is also a really good sports physio. So we're going to dive into this and have a good chat with her, a catch up, talk about life and all things running and fun. So yeah, let's just dive in from there, straight into it. Sophie, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Nathan, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. You? How's your running been this week?
What's that, mate?
How's your running been this week?
Not too bad. I actually had a quick chat with Sophie before this, though, so she knows a bit more about it than you as well. But yeah, I've kind of having a bit of an injury with my knee at the moment. So after following our discussion about Lord Hereford's Knob and that trail run that I did last Sunday, 2 weeks Sunday, I've suffered a bit with a bit of an inflamed knee and some knee problems, and it's been quite uncomfortable and it doesn't seem to be shifting. So Sophie has very kindly done a bit, reached out and given me some advice, and it turns out to be the quadricep tendon. So I've been given some advice, and yeah. What have you been doing for the past week, mate?
In bed for 4 days ill. I've been rough as hell. But even with lying in bed, I've been checking my Garmin and everything, seeing what my heart rate was. Because as you do, you're a runner, so you love your stats. And my resting heart rate for the 4 days was like 80, which was just nuts because normally it's like 50, 55 tops. My body battery didn't go above 5 for 4 days. So yeah, I needed the rest.
Yeah. So have you managed to get out and run?
Oh no.
No.
I walked back from work the other day, and it killed me. I was out of breath. Took the dogs out for a walk today. It was only a mile. Walked up a little hill at the end. I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. So I'll have a couple more days off now and see what I'm like next week.
Good man. You're doing the right. You're my dream.
But you did warn me last week or the week before, because I posted that my heart rate was like 15 above where it normally is on a run home. And she said rest. And that was it. I ignored her.
And this again goes back to what we were saying about, when you're putting stress on your body through running, so you are more susceptible to getting ill. And then, like you're saying, your heart rate's up because your body's working harder to try and fight it off. So yeah, you've done the right thing. Rest it. Wait till you feel better.
On that note, back to you, Sophie. I just wanted you to tell us more about you, really, because I know that we're limited with time and everything, and I know you've probably got a good story and you want to talk about everything. And yeah, I just want our listeners to know more about you. So I know I introduced you straight away as a trail runner and talk about your ultra. So let's just talk about you and how life is, how you got into running and physio and everything.
Yeah, well, so kind of ironically, so when I was 16, I wanted to be a physio. So I worked as a physio assistant in a private practice, which was basically doing massage and weird and wonderful things we don't really do anymore, like ultrasound and, well, some people do. I don't do ultrasound, but things like that. And then basically decided I didn't want to be a physio. I wanted to potentially do medicine, but I wasn't sure. So I did a degree in psychology, and then I did a master's in clinical neuroscience, and then I ended up doing research for a bit in dementia research. And then I decided I wanted to be a physio again. So I then did another master's to become a physio. So yeah, it was took a me a bit of a while to get to where I am kind of career-wise now. And then, so as a lot of people do as physios, I worked in the NHS. So did junior rotations, did my senior musculoskeletal physio rotations through COVID, which was fun. And then I basically decided I wanted to do more musculoskeletal physio as an outpatient physio. So yeah, left the NHS, took 2 months off to go traveling, which was great fun, and started doing private practice. And then I guess in that time, so I used to hate running. Like, my parents find it absolutely hilarious that I'm even considering doing an ultramarathon, because I hated it. I used to be a swimmer and a netball player. So when I used to train, 7 days a week swimming, 3 days a week netball. That was life. And then when I did 2 months traveling, as I said, before going private, and we basically drove around Europe in a van that we converted. And I saw Lewis Robling had become a running coach. So I was like, oh, maybe I just need a coach. Like, maybe that's what's going to get me into running, because all I could do when I was travel was run, and I'm not very good at not exercising. So messaged him. He became my running coach, got me into running. And then now I'm specialise in running physio. So it's been a bit of a journey, but that's a very brief summary of me, how I'm here.
That's terrible. Basically, Nate, me and you now sound very dumb.
Yeah. How did you actually meet Lewis then? How did you know him?
Literally just on social media. I just because I'd followed his girlfriend Steph, and I think she posted or I don't know, something happened to say Lewis was a running coach. So I was just like, okay, well, I'll message him. Literally was had a phone call with him and was like, I don't really know what I want, but I want to enjoy running because I'm driving around Europe and I'm going to be in amazing places, and it would be kind of great if I enjoyed exercising in that space. So he just made me a bit of a program. I learned that consistency is key when it comes to enjoying running. And now I absolutely love it. I've obviously done basically trail halves have been the thing that I've done so far. And we can talk more detail about this, but I'm very, very passionate about people moving into the ultra space, when they're ready to, when their body's ready to. And I feel ready to. It still feels kind of scary, the thought of running 54 kilometers around Loch Ness, but I'm now love running, which is crazy.
Make sure you take a camera, because you never know, you might see the monster. You never know.
Yeah, I hope so.
Interesting point that you said something about you're passionate about the again, we can come into it later unless we just chat about it now, really. But you've said about the journey into becoming an ultra runner. Is that because you've maybe seen more injuries where people have rushed into it because they've fallen down these rabbit holes of thinking, wow, it looks awesome to run 100 miles through America or wherever, and they've hardly run before and they think they're superhuman, and then lo and behold they end up on your table? Yeah,
basically. And I think literally on my bench. I think not the problem, but the beauty of running is that it's so accessible to everyone. Everyone can run. What sport is there where everyone can do it? And because of that, it's almost like marathons they don't seem like a challenge anymore, even though they are such a huge challenge. And it still seems mad to say that marathons are becoming popular, but I think a lot more people now are looking at, what can I do beyond a marathon, or how can I push my body? And obviously ultra marathons are a big thing nowadays. Lots of people do them, relatively speaking. Lots of people do them, and I think a lot of people don't realize the different just requirements involved in an ultra marathon, which is why I love working with endurance athletes, because when you're doing ultras, you're on time on feet for you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours. It's not, you know, if you do a marathon, say you're running 3, 4, 5 hours, you know, plus whoever, but it's a completely different ball game when you're training for ultras, and the training obviously required is obviously normally greater. And I think a lot of people don't realize the strain that puts on your body, not just from like my muscles hurt because I'm running lots. Obviously your energy requirement goes up. So I'm really interested in things like RED-S. I don't know if you guys heard of REDS.
Nope.
So that's something, so it's relative energy deficiency in sport. So it's basically a term, it's symptoms that come from being in a state of low energy availability. So a lot of people who are under fueling basically, and don't realize how much you need to eat when you're training for ultras, because you need to eat a lot, or marathons, you know, any form of endurance event. So now being in this space, I see a lot of people with conditions like RED-S or stress fractures are another really common thing that happen in people training for endurance events, because, gosh, I can talk about this for England, but essentially carbohydrates are really important for bone health. So when you're running, you're obviously loading your bones a lot. So you need them to be healthy bones, and you need your body to heal them and keep them healthy. If you don't eat enough carbohydrates, or you're restricting, or you're in a calorie deficit, basically what can happen is your bones can become weaker, let's say, which puts you at greater risk of stress fractures. So I actually see a lot of endurance runners, so marathon runners and trail runners, who get stress fractures because they are overtraining and under fueling, essentially. That's kind of the easiest way to put it. So I'm really passionate about education around that, basically. That's
really interesting, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was actually, in your experience so far, being a physio and everything, what is one of the most common injuries you get? But I think you've just kind of answered that in a roundabout way, is stress fractures and stuff like that, because, like you said, overtraining and defueling. Just a question on that, actually. Do you get a lot of do you do a lot of like recovery, like kind of rehab? I'm trying to think how to word it, because when people come in, I think something that I found interesting when I've looked into this is that a lot of people put so much focus into their training, you know, the long runs and everything leading up to the strength training and stuff, which is all brilliant. But then the minute these, you know, and I'm fallen victim to it, I'm sure Nathan has as well, like, you do your long run and stuff like that, and you don't focus anywhere near as much as you should on the recovery. So whether that be an ice bath or whatever it might, it doesn't matter, like, you know, replenishing all the calories you've lost, for instance.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's got to be a direct correlation between a poor recovery plan and injury.
Yeah, 100%. I probably, till I'm blue in the face, say to people about rest and like resting. Like, your rest is so important, and kind of within rest and recovery is basically sleep, time not running, which a lot of runners don't do a lot of, and fueling. Like, they're the key things for recovery. So yeah, if you're really stressed and you're not sleeping very well, and because of that you're not eating very well, like, that's all a kind of just creates this kind of nasty web of you being more at risk of injury. So not just stress fractures. I see lots of, like, with runners, so like yourself, quadriceps tendon, patella tendon injuries. I see lots of ankle sprains, so twisting on trails is very common. Lots of people with like Achilles tendon issues, like that. You can still get, even if you're under fueling or overtraining or not resting enough, you can get kind of, we call them like metabolic injuries, but you can still get, you know, lots of niggles. So often I'll have people that come to me and say, I just, you know, I'm training and I just keep getting injured and I keep getting niggles, and I just don't really understand. I'm doing everything right. And then when you actually look at it, they're not resting, they're not recovering well enough. So we recommend, you know, over 9 hours sleep a night. which people don't get. And 9 hours sleep, it doesn't have to be in one go. So say you just can't, you've got a newborn baby and you're up all night and you're not sleeping, but then if you're able to get, or a 2-year-old or napping in the day, you're still getting in that rest, those hours, because when you sleep is when your body does all of its healing. So if you're not having enough sleep, you're not having enough recovery. So I do a lot, like when I get runners into the clinic for their initial, my questions always, they'll tell me about the injury, and then I'm like, what's your relationship with food, what's your home life like, what's your stress like? With women, I always ask if they've got regular menstrual cycle, because that's a big sign of Red S, that condition I was telling you about. If your menstrual cycle stops, with men, if you're not getting your morning erections, that's another sign of things like Red S. So I ask lots of questions that people don't expect me to ask, shall I say, but it just gives me a really good picture of where you're at, basically.
I don't mean to laugh, but wow, I mean, Nathan, did you expect to ever hear that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean,
makes me wondering. I bet every man's thinking, hang on a minute, when was the last time I had a morning glory?
Well, ideally it's more than 5, above 5 a week.
Really?
5 erections.
Yeah, just waking up.
I immediately know where this is going. I mean, we could open this up now and talk for ages about it, but I mean, being a parent to a 2-year-old boy, I don't think I got time to have an erection, if I'm being honest, let alone.
Can you add that data to your Garmin?
yeah. To be fair, it's a very good point, because Garmins do actually ask about, for females, they track your periods. So
wow,
maybe we should write to Garmin, because the thing is, a lot of people, it used to be called the female triad, Red S, because it was seen more common in females. I think that was more because it was seen in lots of female sports like gymnastics, stuff like that, but it's been retermed Red S because it's males. So
wow.
Maybe Garmin should start asking you whether you've woken up in that state or not.
I mean, that is very interesting though. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, I don't want to say anything too controversial, but I guess, you're right. Why is it that it's factored into the female almost concern is factored into a Garmin? But I mean, it's just a funny concept for me, just as a man, like because I know Garmin's, they consider your water intake, your sleep intake, and then it's like bonus, question mark. It'd be hysterical if you could add that and customize it, but it's
just have
obviously
an arrow up or down.
It's a very serious subject, but that is that's wow. Maybe we should. You never know.
We've got a running podcast talking about erections. What the hell?
Listen, it's vital. People need to know this, and I'm trying to think of a pun on. Well, I can't though. I can't.
We'll think of something, I'm sure.
Yeah. But that's really interesting. I've never heard of that, and
your body has good ways of telling you if things are working. So, not to go on about that, but the reason is essentially if you're under fueling, your body tries to conserve all the energy towards like what it needs to do. So obviously if you're running a lot, your body's like, right, I need energy going to my muscles to run. So it shuts down other systems. So your reproductive system. So that's why we lose periods and morning erections. Sometimes people get a lot more gastro issues because it just has less energy going towards digestion and stuff. So it's honestly so interesting. It's kind of it's scary because
wow.
And like I said, since I've been in this world, I've been kind of not really surprised how common it is. And it's definitely something that I think needs more awareness. That's why I love talking about it, because if more and more people want to get into ultras and want to get into endurance running, which is amazing, You just need to make sure that you're doing it safely, basically. And these are the signs to look out for if things aren't, red flags are popping up, that you're not maybe doing it in the correct way. So, yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I love that. That's crazy.
Great timing for me as well, because next week my mileage really steps up a bit. So next week I'm starting to like really focus on my food as well. So that's a good thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, it's just a little thing. Hopefully, all the men, all the women can take away as a nugget.
Yeah, it's good.
Check out.
I like that.
Yeah, right there. That's really interesting. Actually, on that note, I did want to say something as well. This might blow your mind as well, Nate. But I spoke about this a little bit with Sophie before before we started recording, and I'm 38. I've been to college. I studied anatomy and physiology way back, and like I said, I'm not a pro or an elite by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know about you. I've always lived by a certain acronym. When you hurt yourself or whatever, I've always been brought up on, the acronym RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. Well, I found out something mind-boggling tonight, Nathan. Would you like to know what that was?
Go on then.
So,
it's just ice, is it?
No. Now, that is no longer termed as RICE. It's now peace and love.
What?
And yeah. Sophie's completely blown my mind. Right. So I asked the question basically at the start of this. I talked about how my knee has been quite inflamed and I felt some pain, and which is now determined as my quadricep tendon. And I asked, I've been putting ice in it and stuff like that, and brought up rice. And Sophie said, actually, made a really interesting fact. They now recommend you are not to ice or use any anti-inflammatory treatment like, tablets and stuff for the first 5 to 7 days. For the reason being is that your body needs inflammation to heal, which completely blew my mind.
Yeah,
so
it makes
now,
a lot of sense, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Get blood circulating.
But
it's common sense, isn't it, when you think about it? Yeah.
It is. But it blew my mind because, like I said, I've grown up doing that, resting, ice and compression elevation. I've lost count of the amount of people I've recommended that because it's so simple. But so to talk about what does peace and love stand for?
I was saying, I was like, I can't remember what every single one of the blooming letters stands for now. So I looked and we checked. So it's protect. So basically, and I should say as well, these are for soft tissue injuries. So if you have a suspected bone injury, please go to A&E and get that looked at. But
yeah, just rest that one.
Yeah, just walk on it. It's fine. Walk it off. For soft tissue injury, so you want to protect it, meaning look after it, be careful, get it checked out, whatever. E for elevate. So we're still doing elevation. Elevation is still part of it. So we want to aid the swelling to come down. So elevating that is still good. A is for avoid anti-inflammatories. So as Reese said, essentially inflammation is how our body heals. So especially in the early phases, we want, like I said, you would want the troops to come in and do, start healing our body. And actually, if we take anti-inflammatories, that inhibits it. So first 5 to 7 days, avoid. You can take paracetamol, non-anti-inflammatory medication is fine, but just avoid the anti-inflammatories, which includes ice. So ice there's a bit of a mix, but essentially avoid ice because there might be some evidence that it slows it down. Compress. So compress and elevate are the best things to do for swelling management. So I can't remember there's an actual measurement of how much you have to compress. It's quite a lot to get the benefit of reducing swelling, but getting like a tight sock on there if it's your ankle. We love this one, educate. So come and see a physio and I will educate you on how to manage your soft tissue injury.
Or listen to Just Run podcast.
Or listen to, exactly, because what more do you need? And then load it. So we kind of say optimal loading. So if it's agony to walk on it, obviously wait until the pain comes down, but use crutches, load it as much as you can. Optimism. again from your trusty physio telling you it's all going to be fine. Vascularization, so basically we want blood flow to the area. So often, like, I'll get people with ligament injuries on a bike because it's non-weight bearing, they're not going to damage it, and actually we want the blood flow to heal it. And then the last one is exercise, so me getting you to do resistance band ankle exercises or ankle pumps or things like that. So yeah, peace and love.
That's blown my mind. I'm a geek with that. That's really blown my mind. I'm going to be telling everyone in work tomorrow, you better watch anything we come in with that exciting news.
You've got to remember what every single thing stands for, though.
It's in there. It's locked in. I got
It's
it.
locked in.
My GCSE physical ed has just gone out the window now.
Mm.
What a
And I mean,
waste.
it's changed a lot. It was police at one point, and I'm sure this will change again soon. But just avoid anti-inflammatories first 5 to 7 days.
Wow. Okay. That is mad. No, fair enough. One thing we actually did as well for yourself, so we posted it, you probably saw, for anybody listening, we put out like a question and answer. And we had some cool questions being asked actually. One of them actually is kind of linked to what we've just talked about, which said, are there any tips or exercises to help with knee pain and to avoid plantar fasciitis flaring up? I mean, that's probably seems like $1 million question, but
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. I always say to people, like, if you've got a recurring injury, or any injury, you need to go see a physio or a therapist, because it's quite generic. And one of the things that really bugbears me a little bit with social media is people be like, do this for your knee pain, and it's a lot more complicated than that, hence why I had to go into a degree to become a physio. But there's definitely, if we talk about knee pain or just knees in general, in order to kind of look after your knees as much as possible for your running, the best thing is doing strength training, which is probably a no-brainer to everyone. But the amount of runners who do not do any strength training also blows my mind. Well, it doesn't, because runners love to run, don't they? You love running, you love to get out and just go for a run. But the best thing to do is strength train for, well, many reasons. So there's loads of evidence it improves your running economy. So you run better, you recruit your muscle fibers better, you recruit more muscle fibers for given tasks. It can reduce your risk of injury. So yeah, if you're someone who's like, oh, I always have my left knee, it's my weak knee, I always get niggles. So doing a lot of strength training around that joint. So you've got your quads on the front. So things like squats, high step ups, knee extensions, just stuff that's going to get that quad really nice and happy, that tendon really nice and happy. And then like your hamstrings on the back. So, deadlifts, single leg glute bridges, anything like that basically works towards supporting your knee as much as possible. So it's probably a bit of a vague answer, but if you've got knee pain, I do virtual physio, so at me, I can sort you out. But yeah, basically keeping the muscle strong. Plantar fasciitis is a bit of a trickier one, because there can be a few different reasons why people get plantar fasciitis. If it's new, often people will come to me and be like, I've just bought these new shoes, or they won't realise it. I'll be like, have you bought new footwear recently? And they're like, I changed my work shoes actually, and they're rock hard, or I've suddenly got new running shoes that are just completely different. So changing your footwear can just upset your feet a little bit whilst they're getting used to it. So if you're someone who struggles with plantar fasciitis a lot, it's really important to find like good shoes that are comfortable. Not just going by, your friend got a pair of Alpha Flies and you've now decided that you want Alpha Flies. So do you know what I mean? Making sure your shoes are right for you. If you're someone who like if sounds like this person has it a lot, doing foot strengthening, again, the strength word's going to come up a lot, I'm going to preach about it. But not just doing like your foot scrunches and your toe yoga. That used to be a big thing in the physio world, and I do still get people doing stuff like that. But if you imagine every time you run, your arch flattens, so the weight of your body pushes your arch flat, and you pronate a little bit, so you rock in. So the fascia, essentially, so what plantar fasciitis is, I probably should say, is you've got a really thick band of connective tissue that runs on the bottom of your foot that supports your arch, basically. It's really thick. You can't stretch it. It's like your IT band. It's not stretchy, but you can put it under more tension. And sometimes that tissue can get inflamed. So sometimes people get it under their arch. Sometimes people get it more in their heel. So if you're struggling a lot with plantar fasciitis, good foot strengthening. So normally I get people down the line when it's feeling a little bit better, doing stuff like balancing on 2 blocks. So with your toes are on the front, your heels are on the back, your arch is unsupported. And I get you to do lots of weird and wonderful things. And basically you can just really feel those little intrinsic feet muscles like working really hard. And the other thing is calves. Like, you need strong calves, and your calves becoming your Achilles becomes your plantar fascia. So you kind of have to work up the chain a little bit. So I would argue all runners should be doing single leg calf raises off the step, but looking after your calves, making sure they're not too tight, making sure they're strong, all of that will just help support your kind of, I say like your foot calf complex. So that whole section. So yeah.
That's awesome. I should note, actually, thank you for M's that girl for asking that question. And yeah, don't skip leg day, basically, in a nutshell.
do not skip leg day. Calf day every day.
One thing on that note, actually, so it just come to my head when you were talking. Do you recommend like vitamins and things like that for like bone strength and joint strength? Is it something that there's a lot of, I know obviously there's science around it, but can it help with like the knee and as you get older or the more running you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a specialist in that area at all. If you're ever wanting to know more about like kind of nutritional dietetics, definitely speak. Rena McGregor, love her, amazing dietitian. But stuff like, especially for bone health, vitamin D. So that's really, really important for bone health, and especially living in the wonderful land that we live in, where it's cloudy and dark and rainy. They for us, they recommend we all take vitamin D irrespective of whether you're a runner or not. So yeah, that's really important for bone health. Calcium as well. And there's a lot of stuff about collagen at the moment, collagen supplements. Again, it's not like my area of expertise, but there is some evidence for like bovine collagen, and that helping to support your connective tissue. But there's different ways. I'm not the best to recommend like which brands, because it's to do with like absorbency. So I think like powders are generally better than tablets, but I mean, don't hold me to that. But yeah, definitely vitamin D.
Okay.
So Will from Adventure Athlete's got a question, because he's currently running the 496 challenge, where he's got to run like 1 kilometer for the date it is. So obviously today, it's 23rd, so he's run 23 today. He's having a bit of pain behind his knee. He's asked a few of us for tips on like how to get rid of it. We said obviously he's not going to be able to do the strength work in the time he's got left, so just roll it out. Would that be something for him, or is there anything he can do?
Speak to a physio. And
he's not a runner, believe it or not, but he's taking this challenge on. He's crazy.
Oh gosh, don't tell me that. If it's the problem is when you're running long distances, like with him, if he's not a runner and his body's not used to it, it's going to be going under. So like your soft tissue takes a really long time to develop. So often you'll find when you run, you'll feel fit quicker. So like your cardiovascular system adapts quite quickly, but your body, your soft tissue takes a lot longer. So I mean, it's hard to say without speaking to him, but if it's pain behind his knee, it would depend. Like, is he doing lots of hills? Is it very flat? Because it could be something to do with his hamstring tendon. You've got lots of other, structures behind your knee. Your calf muscles basically come up as well. So is it a calf attachment thing? I'd get him to drop me a message. I'm happy to have a chat with him. But in terms of management, I mean, ideally, when you have soft tissue injuries, you, as I've said to Reese, you need to kind of almost pull back a little bit. But obviously, he's doing a big challenge, so that's not going to be possible. Foam rolling and massage they won't fix anything. They're ways, it's basically a way of you feeling better, but they work in the short term, so you'll get short-term benefits. So we do lots of soft tissue work at events because you get that short-term pain relief that kind of carries you over the next day. So it might be worth, if he can, see a soft tissue therapist. I mean, ideally someone like a physio or sports therapist or something who can actually assess it and make sure it's nothing nasty. But I would say it's probably soft tissue if he's new to running and is suddenly running lots. But I would get it checked out, because if he's planning on running for a long time, which it sounds like he is, you want to make sure that you're kind of nipping it in the bud before it becomes anything too nasty. You can do some taping. We all know how I feel about taping. But again, it might, if it's taped in the right way, it might give him a little bit of relief or a bit of placebo to make him feel like it's a bit better. But I would say to him, if he can see someone to give him like a proper diagnosis and make sure it's nothing nasty and it is kind of safe for him to continue running, that's probably my best advice.
And going to Ellie Hughes's question of like, how could she start running? So what advice would you give to someone who's just coming into running from a physio point of view?
Take your time. So Couch to 5K is like the best app, or like there's variations of Couch to 5K. I think Runner do a 5K, like 0 to 5K thing, but find a plan for 0 to 5K, because they're really nice, because what they should be, I mean, I haven't looked at all of them out there, but Couch to 5K is great because it's really great, like it really takes time to progress. So you do feel a little bit at the beginning. Often people are like, oh, it's a bit slow to start with. I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's getting your body used to it. So you start with like a run walk. So especially with people with acute injuries, when I'm getting them back into running, I do the same thing. So you have a max time that you can exercise for, and within that you walk for a minute, run for a minute, walk for a minute, run for a minute. So you just want to really take your time, ease yourself into it. And also the plan, I love having a plan, which is why I love having a coach, is because it holds you accountable. You've got that accountability to get out and go, because when you start running, as we all know, we're all amateurs, it's blooming tough going, and it sucks to start with, and you just have to get through that. So having that, as I said before, consistency is key with running. So having a bit of consistency, getting yourself a plan, taking your time. So don't suddenly go and be like, right, I'm going to go run 10K today, because you'll probably be really sore and then it will really put you off running. But if you do it slowly and properly, you'll find the love.
You find the love. Wow.
Peace and love.
There's a lot to be said for that. And like, I've spoken about it. I think we've probably touched on it on every single episode, and I'll probably touch on it on future episodes as well, because I think there's a lot to be said for progressive overload and stuff. And instead of the biggest problem with people who want to start running, and again, Ellie Hughes, who answered the question, is Sophie put it perfectly. You don't need to go out there and try and become the next best thing in within a short space of time. Just be consistent, progressively overload it. So in other words, just like Sophie said again, you don't need to go out and do 10K, just very short distances, walk if you have to. And it might get boring and you might think, I'm not improving, but trust me, you will. It's something that there's so much to be said for it, like being consistently good, like just doing it, time on feet. But yeah, follow a program, and that's some great advice. Good.
Well, Andrew from last week is a perfect example.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think he had a run on the weekend, didn't he?
He did have a run on the weekend, actually. Yeah, I think. No, did he? Yeah, he did, and he did win the day as well. I can't remember when he did his race. That's poor of me. I haven't kept up with that. That's my bad this week. But no, that's some great advice. There is one, I think this is kind of going back to something we spoke about previously. I'll ask another question, but one thing I did want to bring up with you, Sophie, as well, because this is something that I know a lot of people rely on. And I wasn't, unfortunately, at Why We Run. I got it right, so I didn't say it right.
Oh God, I can't believe I said that.
You apparently love the taping. So we spoke about this briefly.
Yeah.
And I know there's probably a world of information out there about this, but just briefly in a nutshell, from your experience, taping. From my experience, I've never used it. And I have a bit of a fear of wearing compression things on my ankles and knees and taping, because I worry that I'm going to start relying on it. And then what if I don't have it? Is it going to affect my performance? Just wanted to hear, just from your perspective, somebody who uses it a lot and has used it on clients, talk a bit more about it, really.
So I have a not a love-hate relationship with tape. I rarely use it in my clinic, because it's, unless so there's different ways you can use tape. Maybe I should talk about it from that perspective. So you can tape to kind of like restrict a joint, so to provide stability. So that's kind of one of the ways. You can tape to essentially aid a muscle, so take on a bit of a role of the muscle. And you can also, other people claim taping kind of increases blood flow and stuff like that. So I wouldn't use it I don't use it for the third reason. I personally, there's no research for that, so I don't believe it's true. But I use it for the first two. So arguably in clinic, taping it for support. So if someone came to me and I thought they had like torn a ligament in their ankle, say, I normally would then tape that ankle until we can get further imaging or get like a more sturdy support. Because I mean, to be fair, you can do some pretty sturdy taping, but it's never going to be as good as like a proper ankle support. Or you can tape a little bit for kind of symptom relief. So like I was saying to you, Reese, if sometimes people that have like a patella, like a really angry patella tendon, you can put a little bit of tape on it and it gives them a little bit of symptom relief. Whether that is completely true or whether it's a bit placebo-y, is an argument in the therapy world. But yeah, but at events, I use it. Well, Nathan, you'll know Why We Run. Everyone is covered in the stuff. And probably shout out to Rock Tape, because they supplied it for us this year. And it was, I mean, it's such good tape. So if you ever want tape, I love Rock Tape. So yeah. But it's amazing at events, because obviously it's very different in an event environment, because people have a challenge. So Why We Run, 250 kilometers over 5 days, that they have trained their butts off to get ready for, and with the hope of completing it. So tape's really important and really good in that environment, because you can just, like I said, if someone's got a bit of a niggly ankle that's a bit weak, you can just tape it, so you know it's a bit more supported. Or we had a lot of people, so you've got a muscle that runs down the front of your shin, so it's called tibialis anterior, tibant. We had a lot of people, actually, to be fair, at both Why We Runs, because your tibant helps you lift your toes up towards the sky. So obviously when you're running over lots of weird and wobbly surfaces and it's slippy, that muscle's working really hard. So we had quite a lot of people with really sore tibants, basically just mild strains. So what we could do in that respect is I kind of taped that ankle up a little bit. So what the tape is doing is it's helping lift your foot, so that muscle doesn't have to work as hard. So there's lots of really cool things. I mean, at the first Why We Run, me and Jenny, someone had a really awful hip flexor and it was just causing them grief. But we didn't think it was, like, there's a fine line between, if someone's really injured, I won't, like, if it's unsafe, I'll be like, you're not having tape, I don't care, you're not running, like, end of. But if we think it's something that they can continue running through, it just helps them. So we did this weird and wonderful hip flexor taping. it looked ridiculous, but again, it just was helping her leg. But yeah, it's really, I love it at events. Basically, I use it a lot more at events. I don't so much use it in clinic.
Did you have any tape during while we run, Nath? Or
The last day, and that was it.
You nearly
gutted.
oh, was that when you had your freak incident looking out over the view? Was it that one?
Yeah, I got injured from that, but then went out on the last day, and then I was cramping up, just like in the groin area, so I just needed tape to like just restrict the movement, so I didn't get to that like cramping part. But yeah, without it, I don't think I would have managed to get through the day.
Have you so have you just got some kind of dark streak running through where you like to put tape on?
Can I just say, I
surfaces?
did not do any groin taping. Was that Chloe? Where did you tape? Where did you have it? I thought you had it on your leg, like your
It was like top of my thigh down to my knee.
Okay, yeah, that was Chloe. That wasn't me.
Okay, I thought that Nathan had just found some random female hiker or male hiker, and do me a favour, love, just stick some down here.
People are going to think I'm a weird physio if I.
I think you got a bit of a dark streak running through, Sophie, because you just seem to like taping up everyone and then watching the poor buggers get it off, like ripping it, waxing themselves, basically.
Oh yeah, with mud as well. Like when people would end the day and they'd come over to see us for treatment, we'd be like, go shower, get all of that off.
It was minging on it.
Yeah,
minging.
The feet. It's quite funny because I get runners that come into me at clinic and they're like, oh, I'm really sorry about my toes, and I'm like, hun, why we run toes are some of the worst toes I've seen. I'm like, it's fine, I've seen worse.
Were you involved in the popping of various blisters and stuff, or is that not you?
No, that was our lovely medics, Hazel and Hannah, team blister squad. I helped with taping, but no, they do. To be fair, I'm fine with stuff like that. Having worked in the NHS, you see some wild things. So a bit of blister doesn't bother me. But no, Hannah and Hazel, bless them, were literally towards the end as well. There was a lot of blisters. So yeah, they were popping away.
Oh man!
How did you actually get involved with it?
With Why We Run?
Yeah. So obviously Lewis was your coach, was he?
Yeah, so Lewis was my coach, and his goal last year was to do the 5 Ultra X 250 kilometer. Sorry, not last year, year before. Runs, and then the last one got cancelled. So Mexico got cancelled. So he was like, "Well, what am I going to do?" So him and Renee McGregor together. Yeah, basically did Why We Run, and I basically said, he was talking to me about it, and I was like, well, do you need a physio? And he was like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm in. Sold. And that was basically it. So yeah, I was there the first one with, as I said, Jenny, who's an osteopath, and it was very different to Why We Run 2. We were I mean, it was amazing in its own right. We were in the middle of nowhere, in this, like, everyone was camping. So that was the big thing. I was actually very smug because I had my camp van, but everyone was camping. It was in November. It was freezing. It torrentially rained, like downpoured. These poor buggers were sleeping in tents. Me and Jenny were doing therapy out of like a wooden shack that had no front to it. So the whole front was open. The electricity kept going off. So at one point we had head torches on. It was so cold. Like it was not, gnarly is probably the best way to put it. But it was just so good. Like I mean, Nathan, you've been to it. Like it's such a good week, and I just was completely hooked from that. And then obviously when there were discussions about the second one, I was like, yeah, count me in, because it is wicked. It is such a fun week. But yeah, from a therapist perspective, I come away from it feeling like I've run an ultramarathon. I'm absolutely knackered.
Did you manage to run at all?
Yeah, so not towards the end of the week, but like at the beginning of the week when you're all kind of leaving and getting back around a similar time. Yeah, I did a couple of runs, and then no, towards the end of the week, because everyone's so spread out, we just kind of don't really have a chance. But this year, when you went in the mornings, I'd go do a quick along the coast, because also I was like, I want to go see. Everyone's talking about the
seals,
like the seals and the pools and all this, and I was like, I want to go see it. Whereas last year, the first one, there was nothing to see. I'm sure there was, but no. But yeah, so no, I actually we got some running time, which was nice, because yeah, mix it up.
Seems like everything that could have gone wrong in the first one kind of went wrong, and then
went wrong, but just was so right. Do you know what I mean? It was like, it was just kind of funny, but it was amazing in that, even though the conditions were like really tough, and these guys, doing a 250 is hard enough in itself, let alone not, again, coming back to that recovery, not recovering properly because you're not sleeping. But everyone was still so positive, and there was still that like team family. Like on the last day, we had people mudsliding. Like it was if you look at it from the outside, you'd be like, oh my gosh, what the heck? But no, it was so good. Hence why I'm fully
the thing is, even though everything was kind of, bad weather, camping, freezing cold, torrential rain, this is what we've spoken about previously, is the community though. So you're all suffering together, and there's something just beautiful about that, because yes, it's miserable. And if you're out there by yourself alone doing some kind of, I don't know, challenge, and just you and your head torch and your tent, it'd be pretty miserable. But again, suffering with everyone else, like-minded people, and the community, you keep everyone's spirits are kept up by that, and you're like, well, we're here now. There's no point in moaning about it. Let's just crack on. And it sounds like an awesome experience, and I really thoroughly enjoyed the documentary, and I'm gutted I never got involved. And I just hope that I can get involved in this next one day, because it just looks amazing.
Yeah, it is good. It's very good.
Obviously, you're doing number 3.
Yeah.
As a physio and also a coach.
Yes, I'm now an ultra running coach, which is really cool. Really cool.
What made you sort of go down that route as well?
I think I don't know. I think I just felt like, if I'm gonna treat ultra runners and endurance runners, like I need to, because like as a physio, you're basically a coach. Like I do people's strength and conditioning programs. Like I've been coaching, but I wanted to have a better understanding of how like people's training plans work. So if I like Reece, you come to me and you're like, right, as you did, I'm doing this ultra in June. I'm at this point in my training plan. My knee's sore. Like now I just have a much better understanding of being like, okay, right, if we're going to pull your running down a bit now, we need to make sure we're, doing enough later on. And I just felt like I needed to have that understanding. And then Lou basically gave me a push to do it, as he does, and was just like, yeah, go, like you should do it, go for it. And so I'm now one of the coaches and / I am the physio and one of the coaches at It's Why We Run. So yeah, it's really cool. It's just, I know, I just get really excited about it, as you can tell.
That's awesome. I mean, it almost feels like you're just a natural to fall into that coaching position, because like you said, you put it perfectly. You basically write programs for people now. You're doing your first ultra soon, but because of your background with physio and recovery and writing these different plans for whether it's treating injuries or whatever it might be, and then you're going into this world of ultras and helping other people with all that knowledge. So I will be coming to you. I'll be coming to you for advice. I apologise in advance, because every now and then you might get a little message like,
yeah. But like, I honestly, I know it sounds cliche, but like, it took me a really long time to like find my niche in my career, and like I loved trauma physio, like loved it. unfortunately, you know, we all know about the NHS and what it is, and it you know is what it was, and I left as a result of it. But it's just, yeah, I just fully feel like I found my little purpose, my niche, which is great. And like, I mean, it's so random, isn't it, how things work, how I happened to see that Instagram post of Lewis, and that happened to get me into running, and then it happened to bring Why We Run into my life, and now I'm doing this. And it's weird how life events happen to become as they are. So that's what I feel. I just feel like if you're, I mean, as we can see, I love doing degrees, so anything to my parents always laugh at me, they're like, another one. But no, I love you know, educating myself and, you know, making sure I'm kind of the best that I can be. And because technically anyone can become a running coach. Like you could one day say, I'm a running coach. Like you don't have to do a course for it. But I'm kind of a firm believer in the fact that it's good to have, you know, some norms that everyone goes by. So if, you know, someone else has been with a different coach, we've worked to kind of the same level. And so the USCA ultra running coaching course is the one that Lewis did, and he recommended, and other people had said that it was really good. So did that.
Wow. That's awesome. I can see again from the smile on your face. It's nice to see that you found your niche. That's awesome.
Yes.
You're bloody good at it. And it makes me laugh as well. You say all these degrees you've got. I struggled through one.
I mean, it's crazy. I joke that my neuroscience masters is basically, I just found my now husband, I met him through a girl I met off my neuroscience masters. So I'm basically like, well, the benefit of that is I found Tom. An expensive way to find him.
That's sweet. I wanted to ask again. This is a huge deep dive, so I just want to ask a little bit of a question, because obviously on this podcast, something that me and Nathan are very keen to talk more about is mental health and things like that. And I know we spoke about this very briefly, but in terms of mental health, stress, things like that, what is the situation in terms of, like, apparently your muscles can hold on to that as well, and that can affect your performance and your physical well-being. So obviously they're both very closely intertwined and linked. So is there based on your knowledge, what's the correlation there? And, you know, how can we look moving forward to help that? Really, is it something that you would say?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think if you just think of a normal stressful situation, so say you're driving and something jumps out in the road, you automatically like tense. Like our body's natural response to stress is to like tense up. So often, you know, you say to people, well, I've had a really stressful week, like my shoulders are really sore, like I just feel tense. Like, so your body's natural response to stress is to tense up. So if your muscles are kind of pain guarding, like they're in that state of like, ooh, like switched on all the time, you are going to be more, I guess, at risk of injury because everything's tense, everything's on edge. I think more so in terms of something that I'm quite, the term, you know, like the pain cave.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings on said pain cave. So I, as a physio, there's a natural part of obviously running where you are going to feel pain, because when you're doing endurance running, you're going to be sore. But I find, I always say to people, it's so important to know when pain is pain, like real pain, because your body's way of telling you something is wrong is by sending pain signals. Your body's saying, ow, this hurts, stop what you're doing. So I find it often happens a lot with people who are going through a period of stress or kind of suffering with their mental health, and they almost want to find that pain cave. Like you hear people being like, oh, yeah, like I'm going out and I'm seeking it, which on some respects, like I totally get, because you're wanting to, you know, fight through that adversity. It's something you can control almost. But again, if you're stressed, everything's tight, everything's sore. If you start pushing into that pain cave, like at what point then is that injury? And is that like a real injury and real pain that you need to stop by? So I find that really interesting, kind of, working out. And again, like this, why we run, I have big discussions with people. I'm like figuring out, is this real pain? Is this just muscle ache and muscle fatigue pain and, muscle stress pain where it's all tight and just unhappy because you're doing a lot? Or is this real injury pain and you need to stop? And I think when you're stressed and your body's on more high alert, people do tend to say they have more niggles. And is that, are you just more high? Is your body just on alert more? So it's seeking out little cues more? Or is it because your muscles are tense and they're working hard already and then you're overworking them? Is that why, there's this tension that your body's feeling? I don't know. But it's a really interesting, area.
That is interesting, yeah. It's almost like goes full circle because you run to relieve the stress and to help yourself. But then if it doesn't work, then you're also putting yourself at risk of injuries. Again, like you said, that's a difficult conversation. And I've been listening. I actually follow a couple of physios on like various podcasts, and they're really interesting to listen to because I'm a bit of a geek with that. And I heard one of the facts I wrote on my phone ages ago was that they've done wound healing studies, and that stress can actually delay healing by up to 60%. Which I found again mind-boggling. So just by being stressed, it can not just cause injuries, but it'll prevent you from getting better as well. Like not make your recovery a lot slower.
Yeah, it's like with your immune system. Like, if you've ever had a cold and you've been stressed, I don't know if you've noticed, but you have that cold for much longer. It just lingers because if you're stressed, your cortisol levels are raised, your stress hormone levels are raised. You're probably not sleeping great. So again, you're not getting that active recovery time. It's like I always say to people when they're training, so if they come to me and they're training for an endurance event and they feel like it's all going a bit awry, like I said with me, like I've waited until now to train for an ultra because I'm a firm believer that anyone can do an ultra. Anyone can. If you want to do it and you put your mind to it, you can do it. But what I don't believe is that you can do it at any point in your life. So for someone, you might be really, really stressed and, work's rubbish, home life's rubbish. Like for you, maybe at that point, not for everyone, some people will be able to, but you might struggle more with training for an ultra because you might find because you're stressed and you're not recovering, but you're getting more injuries, you're getting more niggles, and you just feel like you're not getting everywhere. Another thing is, people who are new to running, who haven't run before, as I said before, with things like Red S. If you're in a calorie deficit, again, you're going to get niggles. You're not going to heal. Like you said, you'll get injured, you'll get wounds that don't heal quickly. It's all of that. So it's, I think people don't realize stress is stress anyway. And if you're training for endurance events, that's a huge amount of stress on your body. Just taking out normal life stresses. So you essentially got double the amount of stress, even though running, a lot of people run to relieve stress. It still is stressful on your body. So it's, you've got to think about it. It's, so I love it. It's so complicated. It's why you have to look at the person kind of holistically. Me and Rini are actually going to be doing a joint clinic soon. So, you can book in to see me and Rini at the same time, so physio and dietetics, because it's like often many people need that, it's like in the NHS when you're in, say you go into hospital and something happens and you're ill, you'll have one doctor see you and then a doctor from another team see you and you work as a team. But actually when you're in outpatients, that doesn't happen. And this is why me and Rini want to do that, because I just think it's, when it comes to the world of endurance running, there's so much stuff going on that you often need a physio. And actually you could definitely do with speaking to a dietitian and probably speaking to a psychologist as well. Like do you know what I mean? So there's loads going on.
Yeah, that's cool. And do you want to tell anyone who's listening now, so how can they find you on Instagram?
I am at Run Free Rehab. Is my physio account basically.
You know exactly where to drop your questions if you got any, like, based
Yeah.
off of this podcast. You know how informative and a fountain of multiple degree knowledge.
Oh God.
And the link for coaching, I've already put up on our link tree on our profile.
Right, so off subject a little bit, just something that me and Nathan wanted to talk about on here, actually, which is really exciting. We're announcing our first competition. So if you haven't seen some of our posts we've put out there, this is something we're doing with our friends over at Mad Running Junkies. They've got an amazing event on. It's an ultra, and it's basically the rules are you've got to do 8 miles. That's the loop, and you do it as many times as you can in an 8-hour period. So you just keep going and going and going until you drop. And it's an awesome little event. It's based in Bridgend. And what we're doing, we're going to give some free entries to some people. All you need to do is tag a friend or somebody you'd like to run with. Make sure you like and follow Just Run and Mad Running Junkies. And like I said, you'll be in a chance for winning a free entry. So yeah, it's a really good race. It looks good. It sounds bloody hard. It's going to be, I think that's more of a mental battle than physical for me personally, doing the same route, similar to like a backyard ultra type style race. But yeah, get liking and following, and you'll be in a chance to win. Other than that, Nath, I know you wanted to say something about some inspirational guys that you found recently as well. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that?
So I only found him like an hour before we come on. So I can quickly sum up what he's doing. So his name's Jack. His Instagram is 800 kilometers .4.80 years. He's running 800 kilometers in 20 days for Help for Heroes. And he's from, I think it's Cheshire or Macclesfield area, I'm sure it was.
800 kilometers in 20 days?
Yeah, so it's like 25, so it's like a marathon a day for 20 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Wow. That's bonkers.
And I'm sure he's recording it on YouTube as well, so you can go over and see his story. And again, I'll post a link to his JustGiving page below. So if you feel free to make a donation, that'd be great for him.
That's awesome. Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
talking about donations, actually, something I do want to quickly touch on. The reason that me and Nathan are doing all these challenges, our reason why is the charities we're trying to raise money and awareness for. Nathan has spoken a lot about Bigmoose, and deservedly so, because they're an awesome charity in Cardiff, and he's doing the Welsh Coastal Path to try and raise money and awareness for those guys. And I'm doing a 100-miler in June, going to Heads Above the Waves. Again, another really good not-for-profit charity based in Cardiff. And just going to drop that in. If you've not heard of any of those, I'm not going to go into it too much now. They're amazing charities. Please take the time to just jump onto their websites, have a research, see the work they're doing, because trust me, they are doing work. They're incredible. And just support, follow, and donate wherever you can, really.
So what I found out this week as well is the guys who are listening in the US, Bigmoose actually cover therapy sessions in the US. It gives you the option to. So if you're struggling with anything mental health, follow the link in the profiles and sign up for some. Yeah,
they're doing some amazing work. Fair play. And if you haven't yet watched the Why We Run documentary, get over and watch it. It'll blow your mind. It's amazing. Take the time. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on it, Soph? How would you reflect on it?
On
Why We Run 2?
It's just amazing. It was just amazing. I was a little apprehensive about how the second one was going to go, because when it's like the first one, when something's so great, you're like, how is anything going to top that? Because also the first one was less runners, so we were all, like I said, huddled together in this tiny space. We got to know everyone. So going to Why We Run 2, I was like, oh, is it going to be as good? And it was, it's just amazing. I just find it so incredible that And the reason I love Why We Run is like I'm not a fast runner at all. I'm not fast. I would say I'm very average. And I love, like, when you go to races, it's always like pace and time and who's done this and who's done what and who's come first. Whereas Why We Run, you get these group of people who literally go to the middle of nowhere on their own a lot of the time, don't know anyone else, to do 5 days of running for a charity to help mental health. And it's just, and everyone, no one, like, everyone just loves each other and cares for each other. And this is just, it's such a like warm, happy, like, you just, I don't know, Nathan, like, I felt a bit sad when I left. Both years I felt sad leaving, because I'm like, I don't want to leave this amazing, supportive community feel, because you just feel the love. It's just, it sounds so weird saying it, but like, it is magical. It is, and the video it captures all of that. I think it's so good.
Did you leave on the Sunday?
Yeah, but I missed your finish.
Oh, that's why you and Chloe left, didn't you?
Yeah, we had to work, and we were working early doors, so we had to get home, and we missed it. Honestly, we were both in the car because we were messaging you, and it was coming up on Chloe's on her like Apple, you know, like the car Apple Play, and we both got really emotional because we were like, oh. And that video of everyone hugging, I was like, I can't believe I wasn't there for that.
Yeah, it was pretty special, wasn't it? I remember it was because it was Grant's birthday, wasn't it?
Mm.
I remember standing like in the circle with Grant and just looking at him, going, "Happy birthday, Grant!"
Yeah,
and it was just amazing for him.
And it's just like, now you leave and you like, I just know, I don't know what it is about Why We Run, but it just attracts. I mean, it's like there's no egos. Everyone's happy. It's like you leave. I know I could message anyone from Why We Run and be like, oh, you know what, I've had a really shit day, and they would be so happy to pick up the phone to me and like, and 100% hand on heart say that. And I feel like everyone would feel the same way for me and for you, Nathan. Like it just finds great people who like doing crazy stuff like ultra running. And it's like you were saying, like Jen said last week, I can still hear the cowbells. Like it's just, and like everyone being together, and I don't know, if you're considering doing it and you're ready to do a multi-day, your body's ready, just do it, because you won't regret it. Like it's what it is.
There's a lot to be said there for considering the amount of days that you were there, considering the amount of miles or kilometers, whatever you count, that people have run, the pain they've endured, the way they felt, tired, exhausted, they're not in their own beds. There's something to be said for the fact that people didn't want to leave. That goes to show.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people would be normally like, get me out of here. Like, right, it's been great, thanks, but I want to go home. They were probably like, can we do another 5 days? Like, there's a lot to be said for that. It just goes to show how tremendously successful it was.
And I think, I mean, correct, obviously you guys have done lots of other ultras, and I mean, and you've run, your running life is longer than mine, but I just feel like when I've been at a race, I've never thought, oh, I wonder if that person I passed finished, or like when you finish, you're like, oh, yay, I finished, I've achieved this. But Why We Run, I just feel like, obviously everyone has their own sense of achievement, but every time anyone crosses that finish line, everyone is like, oh my gosh, has blah blah finished yet? How are they doing? Like, people will come in to a checkpoint and come over to me and be in pain, and I'll be, you know, assessing them, and they'll be like, oh no, but how's G doing? How's this? Like, it's just, it's one of a kind. It really is.
There was the one moment in there, and forgive me because I don't know the lady's name, where she couldn't finish, and she'd really pushed herself, and I think she was having physio or being strapped up. Might have been both.
Holly.
Yeah, she was gutted. No, I was watching that. I'm not gonna lie, there was many moments during it whilst I was on the treadmill, and I was tearing up because you just get that, you know, the hairs in the back of your neck, because I know the feeling. We all know the feeling where you've pushed yourself so hard, and you could see that in that moment, it doesn't matter what anybody was saying to her. She was like, but I failed. But you could see the community coming together and just kind of hand on his shoulder was so reassuring and like there for it. The support was just amazing. And
So she did finish.
She went back out, yeah.
Yeah, the
of course
bugger.
she did. Yeah, of course she did. She did. But in that day, in that moment, you
Yeah.
could see she was so defeated. She was like, "I'm done. I'm failed." And I'm a little bit pissed off that I didn't go, and it's annoying that everyone's talking about this still. But I love talking about it. But every time I see the pictures now on Lewis's Instagram, I've watched the documentary. I watched half of it again. I'm going to finish it on my next treadmill session. It's just like, why wasn't I there?
Next time.
Next time. Indeed.
Yeah, that clip with Molly, every time if you speak to her, she kept coming up to me and she was like, "Tell me I need to stop," because she was like, I need you to tell me I need to stop rather than me decide I need to stop. And I was like, well, you're not injured enough to stop. You're sore. But no, she's everyone's wicked. Definitely do it.
Class. Awesome.
Well, Reece, you've managed to do it again. Well done. You haven't mentioned Nick Bear once, so congrats.
Do you know what? Fuck off. Look, right. I listened
You little man crush.
I listened to one of his podcasts this week and I shared it and I was just waiting and I'm surprised he didn't drop a comment in there. But I'm not going to mention it. I mean, I will say that the guest he had on was unbelievable. He ran 450 miles in 4 days and he's 48 or 49. He won like this big backyard ultra. And this guy is just phenomenal. But yeah, look, you're making me talk about it, and I can't help it. The guy is inspiring. He has some great guests and stuff. But yeah, screw you. Right, that brings the podcast to a close now, guys. Just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's listened to this week's episode. I'm sure you've enjoyed it as much as me and Nathan have with Sophie. She is a fountain of knowledge. It's been really great to meet you, Soph, and just lovely to talk to you, hear about your journey, and yeah, all the advice you've given, I'm sure would be greatly appreciated. On the subject of appreciation, just want to say thank you so much to anybody who listened to previous episodes. We've got so many new likes and people subscribing all over the world, most recently Mexico. So hola and gracias to the guys over in Mexico. And yeah, just want to say thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it and tune in next week. And remember the Mad Running Junkies challenge. Thanks ever so much again, and tune in next week. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye.
Stop.